So this tariff bill, I cannot tell you how important this is. And costs are going up, and corruption is going up, and chaos is going up, when they're undermining our national security. Democrats are on the offense.
In a political earthquake that has sent shockwaves through Washington, a faction of Republican senators has broken ranks to join Democrats in a bold move against President Donald Trump's aggressive tariff strategy. This unexpected alliance challenges the very foundation of Trump's trade policies and ignites a fierce debate over the future of America's economic relationships. What led to this dramatic confrontation, and what are the potential repercussions for the nation? On April 2, 2025, the U.S. Senate narrowly passed a resolution aimed at overturning President Trump's 25% tariff on most Canadian imports. This resolution, championed by Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, saw an unusual coalition of 4 Republican senators: Rand Paul of Kentucky, Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and former Senate leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, joining forces with Democrats. Their collective action defied Trump's explicit calls for party unity against the measure. The backdrop to this legislative rebellion is President Trump's recent announcement of sweeping tariffs targeting numerous U.S. trading partners, including a significant levy on Canadian goods. The administration justified these tariffs by citing a national emergency related to fentanyl smuggling from Canada, a claim that has been met with skepticism and criticism from various quarters. Senator Klobuchar has been a vocal opponent of the tariffs, emphasizing their detrimental impact on Minnesota's economy. She argued that imposing tariffs on Canada, the state's top trading partner, would lead to increased prices, job losses, and unnecessary economic strain. Klobuchar stated, "This resolution is about drawing a line in the sand and saying you cannot abuse your emergency powers to start an unjustified trade war." Star Tribune. The bipartisan nature of the Senate's resolution is particularly noteworthy. Senator McConnell, despite his previous support for the president, expressed his opposition to the tariffs, remarking, "As I have always warned, tariffs are bad policy, and trade wars with our partners hurt working people most." This sentiment reflects a growing unease within the Republican Party regarding the potential economic fallout from escalating trade tensions. However, the resolution's future remains uncertain. While it passed the Senate, its prospects in the Republican-controlled House are dubious. House Speaker Mike Johnson and Majority Whip Tom Emmer have not committed to bringing the resolution to a vote. Emmer, in particular, has voiced support for the president's tariff strategy, suggesting confidence that the markets will stabilize and that the tariffs will ultimately benefit American interests. The stakes of this legislative battle are immense. Supporters of the resolution argue that the tariffs are an overreach of executive power, potentially leading to higher consumer prices and strained relations with key allies. Critics within the Republican Party fear that such trade wars could harm American workers and farmers, sectors that are particularly vulnerable to retaliatory measures from affected countries. Conversely, proponents of the tariffs, including President Trump and his allies, contend that these measures are necessary to protect American industries and to address unfair trade practices. They argue that the tariffs will incentivize domestic production and rectify long-standing trade imbalances. The international response has been swift and severe. Canada has already imposed retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods, and other trading partners are considering similar actions. The European Union, for instance, has condemned the U.S. tariffs as a major blow to the world economy and is contemplating countermeasures. These developments raise the specter of a full-scale trade war, with potentially devastating consequences for the global economy. Financial markets have reacted negatively to the escalating trade tensions. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted by 1,600 points in a single day, marking one of the most significant declines since the financial crisis of 2008. Investors are increasingly concerned about the potential for prolonged economic instability and the impact of retaliatory tariffs on various industries. As the situation unfolds, the American public is left to grapple with the implications of these policy decisions. Will the president's hardline stance on trade yield the intended benefits, or will it plunge the nation into economic turmoil? The coming weeks will be critical in determining the trajectory of U.S. trade policy and its broader impact on both domestic and international fronts. What are your thoughts on this escalating trade conflict? Do you believe the tariffs will protect American interests, or are they a perilous gamble with the nation's economic future?
Liberation Day, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. The United Kingdom, 10%, and we'll go 10%. So we'll do the same thing.
Chlorinated chicken, or economic punishment? A shocking ultimatum from Donald Trump is threatening to blow up UK food standards and trigger a full-scale trade war. If Britain refuses to accept controversial American chicken imports, it could face punishing tariffs on billions of pounds worth of exports. Is this a bold new era of America First diplomacy or a direct assault on British sovereignty? As of April 3, 2025, the United States, under Donald Trump's renewed leadership, has fired the opening shot in a transatlantic trade standoff. In a speech in Ohio, Trump announced sweeping 10% tariffs on all UK exports to the US, unless Britain agrees to accept chlorinated chicken into its food market. Yes, you heard that right. The same chlorinated chicken that has been banned in the UK for years due to public health concerns. The same product that symbolizes what many see as the race to the bottom in American food safety practices. Trump's message was loud and clear: accept U.S. agriculture on our terms or pay the price. The crux of the issue lies in food safety standards and the political will to defend them. In the U.S., chicken is often washed in chlorine to kill bacteria after slaughter, a method permitted there but strictly banned in the UK and EU. British regulators have long argued that this method allows producers to neglect hygiene during the farming process. Critics call it cosmetic cleaning. British supermarkets have consistently rejected it. Public polling shows overwhelming opposition. Yet now, under direct economic threat, the UK may be forced to reconsider. In response, Prime Minister Keir Starmer's spokesperson doubled down, stating as of April 4, 2025, that there are no plans to change UK food import standards, reaffirming a 2019 manifesto promise to uphold food quality post-Brexit. But with US tariffs looming, how long can that position hold? Farmers across the UK are sounding the alarm. Liz Webster, the founder of Save British Farming, issued a blistering warning. Trump wants to dump low-grade food on our shelves. If we cave, it's over for British farming. For her, and many in the agricultural sector, this isn't just about chlorine. It's about whether the UK will be forced to abandon its hard-won standards in the name of economic survival. Meanwhile, Trump allies like Nigel Farage are cheering this move. Farage recently praised Trump for exposing British hypocrisy and insisted that chlorinated chicken poses no real risk. This battle has quickly evolved into a defining struggle over what kind of country post-Brexit Britain wants to be, a nation that defends its standards or one that trades them away. This isn't just about chicken, it's about power. Trump's strategy is a classic pressure tactic, economic leverage in exchange for regulatory surrender. But if the UK gives in here, what's next? Hormone-injected beef? Genetically modified corn? The signal to the world would be chilling, that British standards are negotiable and that economic muscle can dictate national policy. But there's another side to this dilemma. The US remains one of the UK's largest trading partners. If the tariffs remain in place, British exporters, especially in the automotive, textile, and whiskey sectors, could suffer devastating losses. Thousands of jobs could be on the line. The government is trapped between two fires, one economic, the other political. Yielding could spark public backlash and betray voter trust. Resisting could deepen recession fears and strain relations with Washington. And let's not forget the global implications. If Britain bows to U.S. demands, what stops China or India from demanding their own concessions in future trade talks? Britain's credibility as a global standard setter is on the line. So now the question is clear. Will the UK cave to Trump's chlorinated chicken ultimatum or defend its values, even at a cost? This isn't just a trade dispute. It's a test of Britain's post-Brexit identity, its sovereignty, and the strength of its leadership. How should the UK respond? Should it make concessions for economic relief or hold the line on standards no matter the price?
Plan includes a 10% tax on all imports, plus reciprocal tariffs on 60 countries.
34% tax on imports from China. That's on top of the 20% tariff already imposed. 24% on Japan and 20% on the European Union.
In a move that's sending shockwaves through the global economy, President Donald Trump has unveiled a tariff strategy that's as perplexing as it is punitive. Dubbed Liberation Day, this policy threatens to upend international trade and disproportionately impact the world's most vulnerable nations. But what lies behind this controversial formula, and who stands to lose the most? On April 2, 2025, President Trump announced a sweeping new tariff policy aimed at rectifying what he terms unfair trade practices. The core of this policy is a baseline 10% tariff on all imports into the United States, with certain countries facing significantly higher rates based on a specific calculation. This formula takes the U.S. goods trade deficit with a country, divides it by that country's exports to the U.S., converts it into a percentage, and then halves that figure to determine the reciprocal tariff, with a minimum floor of 10%. The implications of this formula are staggering, particularly for impoverished nations. For instance, Madagascar, with a GDP per capita just over $500, now faces a 47% tariff on its $733 million worth of exports to the U.S., which include vanilla, metals, and apparel. Similarly, Lesotho in southern Africa is hit with a 50% tariff, and Cambodia faces a 49% tariff. These exorbitant rates are a direct consequence of these countries' limited capacity to import U.S. goods, thereby skewing the deficit-to-export ratio unfavorably against them. Critics argue that this blunt application of tariffs could severely hamper the development prospects of nations already grappling with economic challenges. John Denton, head of the International Chamber of Commerce, remarked, "The biggest losers are Africa and Southeast Asia, highlighting the potential for exacerbated economic disparities in these regions. But it's not just developing countries that are feeling the heat. Wealthier nations are also caught in the crosshairs. The European Union, for example, faces a 20% tariff, 4 times its average tariff rate of 5%, as calculated by the World Trade Organization. Stefano Berni, general manager of the consortium representing Italy's Grana Padano cheese producers, labeled the calculation a colossal inaccuracy, emphasizing the potential damage to industries that have long relied on transatlantic trade. The methodology behind these tariffs has been met with widespread confusion and criticism. Economists point out that the formula lacks nuance and fails to account for the complex realities of global trade. Mary Lovely, senior fellow at the Peterson Institute, compared it to prescribing medication based solely on a patient's weight divided by age, calling the approach deeply misleading. Furthermore, the policy raises significant questions about the future of international negotiations. Stephen Adams, a former European trade advisor, noted that the mechanical application of these tariffs leaves little room for dialogue or adjustment, potentially locking countries into punitive measures without a clear path to resolution. The global reaction has been swift and severe. Financial markets have experienced turbulence, with emerging economies particularly hard hit. Vietnam's stock market, for example, dropped 7%, and currencies across Asia have weakened in response to the tariffs. Major financial institutions like J.P. Morgan have downgraded their outlook on emerging markets, warning of long-term effects on debt and capital flows. In the United States, the tariffs have sparked domestic debate. Senator Chuck Grassley has pushed for congressional approval of the president's tariffs, asserting the legislative branch's authority over trade matters. This move reflects growing concern among lawmakers about the potential economic fallout and the executive branch's unilateral action in imposing such sweeping measures. As the world grapples with the ramifications of this policy, questions abound. Will these tariffs achieve their intended goal of rectifying trade imbalances, or will they plunge vulnerable economies into deeper distress? Are we on the brink of a global trade war, and what could that mean for international relations and economic stability? The answers remain uncertain, but one thing is clear: the world is watching, and the stakes are higher than ever. What are your thoughts on this unprecedented tariff strategy? Do you believe it will bolster the U.S. economy, or are the risks too great?
China, 67%. That's tariffs.
From President Trump's tariffs.
His trade war with new tariffs
On products imported to the United States.
In a political landscape rife with division and partisanship, an unexpected alliance has emerged that could redefine the future of American trade policy. Democratic Representative Jared Golden of Maine has voiced support for President Donald Trump's ambitious tariff plan, signaling a rare moment of bipartisan cooperation in an era marked by deep political divides. This development raises critical questions. Could this collaboration bridge the chasm between Democrats and Republicans? And what does this mean for the American economy and its workers? On April 2, 2025, President Trump unveiled a sweeping tariff strategy, imposing a universal 10% tariff on all imports into the United States, with certain goods facing tariffs as high as 50%. This bold move aims to address long-standing trade imbalances and revitalize domestic industries. Trump proclaimed, April 2, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn. Representative Jared Golden, a moderate Democrat from Maine's 2nd Congressional District, a region that Trump won by approximately 10% in 2024, has broken ranks with his party to support this initiative. Earlier this year, Golden introduced the Built USA Act, proposing a similar 10% blanket tariff on imports. He expressed his alignment with Trump's plan, stating, "I'm pleased the president is building his tariff agenda on the foundation of a universal 10% tariff like the one I proposed." Golden emphasized the need to fix the broken free trade system that made multinational corporations rich, but ruined manufacturing communities across the country. Golden's support is not without conditions. He advocates for pairing tariffs with policies that prioritize American families' prosperity, including supporting unions, cutting regulations that hinder production, unleashing American energy, and using tariff revenue to bolster domestic manufacturers. He asserts, tariffs are a first step in rewriting a rigged trade system, but they cannot be the last one. This bipartisan moment is rare. Many Democrats have voiced strong opposition to Trump's tariff plan. Representative Gregory Meeks, DNY, the top Democrat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, pledged to force a vote targeting the new national emergency Trump is using to justify the 10% blanket tariff. Meeks criticized the tariffs as a significant regressive tax hike on Americans. On the Republican side, reactions are mixed. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has publicly criticized the tariffs, stating, "Trade wars hurt working people most." However, some Republicans, like Senator Chuck Grassley, have introduced legislation to give Congress more authority over tariffs, reflecting concerns about the executive branch's unilateral trade actions. Economists and business leaders are divided on the potential impact of the tariffs. Supporters argue that they will protect American jobs and industries from unfair foreign competition. Critics warn of higher consumer prices, potential retaliatory measures from trading partners, and disruptions to global supply chains. The stock market reacted negatively to the announcement, with major indices experiencing significant declines. Golden's willingness to collaborate with Trump on this issue underscores the complexity of trade policy and its far-reaching implications. It also highlights the potential for common ground in addressing the challenges facing American workers and industries. As Golden stated, "I'm hoping that I can help the president get some members of Congress to support doing that in a bill and maybe put it on his desk." This unfolding situation presents both opportunities and risks. The potential benefits include revitalizing domestic manufacturing, reducing trade deficits, and strengthening the American economy. However, the risks involve escalating trade tensions, increased costs for consumers, and potential job losses in industries reliant on imported materials. As the debate intensifies, the American public is left to ponder, is this bold tariff strategy the key to restoring America's economic strength, or does it risk plunging the nation into deeper economic turmoil? Will this rare bipartisan effort pave the way for more collaborative policymaking, or is it merely a fleeting moment in an otherwise polarized political environment? What are your thoughts on this unprecedented alliance and its potential impact on the American economy? Share your opinions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth analyses of the pressing political issues shaping our nation.